Okay, so today we're going to continue on our castle and possibly your creature if you get that far today. So our I can statement today says, today I will learn about space so that I can use size and overlapping to make my landscape look like it has depth. Okay, so we're going to be doing outlining of the castle with oil pastels or China markers, and then we're going to be using oil pastels for like flowers and all those little details today. Okay, so just like before, I'll leave these samples out so you can kind of see what kind of colors people have chosen, but you can do your own thing and make it special and unique to you. So when you get yours back, first thing you're going to do is see if there's any kind of things you want to add to it with your drawing. And you can draw with pencil, or you could draw with a China marker or oil pastel. So if you use a China marker, they're a little bit, they're wide, but you can get a little more precision than you would be able to get because the oil pastel's a lot thicker. Okay, so either one is fine. But if you do get a China marker, please do not pull this cord. When people pull the cord, it makes it very difficult for me to sharpen it and fix it. So just leave that little piece of white cord alone. And then if this, you can no longer get to the black, bring it to me and I will lower this level down so you have a little more black showing, but you can't sharpen this, okay? So I use this just to kind of outline. It's gonna create kind of that wax resist, this similar to an oil pastel, so it still will work, but you have a little more control with what you're drawing, and then also it's a little bit thinner for these small little details because my little castle is pretty small on here. Okay, so I've traced that. I traced my mountains. I'm gonna add a few more trees to mine. I'm going to trace my pathway here. And then the last thing I'm going to do is use my colored oil pastels to add the flowers. So to give it that depth, you want to make sure your flowers that are very close to you, which means it's at the bottom part of your paper. This is the foreground. These are the largest, and I would color them in on your paper. Then when you get a little farther away, I do more of a medium size and then small size and then maybe back here. It just looks like little dots, okay? So you can see how I've kind of changed my sizes of my flowers, getting smaller the farther away it gets from me and the closer it gets to the castle, it's gonna become more of a little dot, okay? You can also use the oil pastels for small little things like the trees. If you want to outline the trees or color them in, you can totally use this to help you out with the coloring, or you can just go straight to the watercolor, okay? So we're gonna pretend for a moment that I finished my hills and I have more flowers here and on this side. And then what we're gonna do is watercolor. So you'll get a little cup of water, and then you're gonna get your paints. And these are semi-moist paints. I kind of have the cool colors in one, warm colors in the other, and then I have black and brown, the neutrals at the bottom. You can get a couple brushes, but honestly, the only time you need this big brush would be like the grass and the sky. The castle, you would want a smaller brush, okay? So I'll put that in the water. So when I do paint my castle, I could paint it like either one of these. This one is like reds and oranges. This is blues and violets. You can even use grays. Now, there's not a gray on here. There's a black. So if you do choose that, you want just a lot of water on your brush and just barely touch the black. And then you see how dark that is? So I'm going to show you how to lighten that up. So I'm going to use that dark kind of on the edge here since it is on my brush. Then I'm gonna dip my brush in the water, just water, no paint, and then I'm gonna put water right over this. So that's gonna be like a light gray. So once again, barely touching the black. You see how dark that is? So I can kind of get it in there around the edges. But then I'm gonna use just water to lighten it up, okay? So I try to do the water shortly after I put the black on. I didn't do that fast enough, so I'm getting a little darker than I wanted, but I'm okay with that. I can do that. See how that bled? So go in here, a little bit of water. Or you could even take this. There's two ways to do it. Squish out the water here and kind of mop it up, or take a paper towel and go down. And when I did that, I made a little mark here on the outside. I am not going to worry about that. When I paint my sky, I'm going to clean up that edge. So then if I wanted to paint the windows in with yellow, I have to wait for all this other gray paint to dry, okay? So while I'm waiting for that to dry, maybe I can work on my pathway. So maybe I'm going to go into the orange here. So lots of water on my brush. And that's nice thing about this paint is when you're using it, you can mix the colors directly on here. Maybe I want some yellow in my pathway to kind of give it a golden look right in there. And maybe I'm going to go even to red. And paint down here. A little bit of red. I'm going to put some orange on that red, so go into the water. And with these semi-moist colors, they don't completely dry out, which can be good and bad. The good part is you don't have to add as much water. The bad part can be if somebody used the color before you and they used a lot of water, it may be too gooey or messy for you. So you can see I just kind of layered my colors right on top of this to give it some interest, okay? And then in an ideal world, if I were to paint this right away, that since we have this black outline, it's gonna hold the color in. Probably would have worked a little bit better if I had used oil pastel, but this should give me some sort of a resist. So let's try and see how that works. So now I'm gonna go into the green. So I always go to the water in between my colors. And then I'm gonna paint right over my flowers. So that's a lot of green. So I'm gonna go into yellow. So it's kind of a yellow-green in this area. That's a little more what I was going for. And the nice thing about green is you can add brown to it to make it kind of more of a hunter green. You can add blue to it to make it more of a blue-green if you want a shadow. But still kind of be careful when you're painting around the edges that you're not going over this little edge right here, because you don't obviously want it all to bleed together. So I just usually go into sections when I'm doing this. When this paint is dry here, which it's not dry here, but I'm gonna work up here, I could then go into my yellow if I want like little lights on in my castle and paint those yellow, okay? But these are, when I can feel this, I can feel that it's a little wet, so I'm gonna wait to paint those yellow until it's dry. And you know what? It may not be dry enough until next week, so next week you just have to do a little touch up in those areas. So ideally you have your castle painted, your path, your grass, your hills, your sky, everything painted. And remember, the sky doesn't always have to be blue. You could have a sunset, you could have it nighttime, whatever you'd like. Just remember, when we do the mythological creatures next week, we're gonna use like black and then smudge to make it gray. So I think the color in the background will really make it pop, okay? So that's what we'll be working on.